Ever since we bought our 2021 Ford Ranger Trimmer Edition, we knew that we were going to be turning it into the ultimate overlanding rig.
What the hell?
Something that you could really take out and be in for maybe a week or two at a time. Upon researching and looking at what other people are doing, we came across the deck drawer system. Your entire bed now becomes this amazing storage area, which is exactly what I wanted. There is one major problem though. What the fuck? I don't get it. How are we letting this happen? It's literally just 2 plastic drawers. I'm gonna build something for half the price, but with way more features.
And if an idiot like me can do it, you can too.
Let's get to building.
We'll start off by sketching up what our base supports are gonna look like, and we're gonna measure all that to fit in our tiny 5-foot bed. With our measurements done, it's time to start cutting. I live in a bus full time, so this goes to show that this whole setup could be built with a minimal tool setup. However, there's no way I'm doing that. I'm lucky enough to have a friend that has an amazing shop, and I'd much rather have access to a table saw. So at this point, we're not only ripping down the base, it's gonna go in the bed of the truck, but we're also gonna go ahead and build our first drawer to determine exactly where our 3 drawer supports are gonna go. This drawer is gonna house our ice coat chest fridge, and it'll feature extra storage for overlanding odds and ends. But before that can be installed, we need to cut and route out our supports. Cutting away all this material should help you shed a few pounds. If only it was always that easy. We're finally ready to assemble our base, which is really only needed to secure our supports. And with that first drawer built, we know exactly how much space we have between each support. Since we all know the importance of rubber, I'm gonna cover the whole thing in it. Extra protection is never a bad idea. This is gonna be part of the top assembly that's gonna cover our drawers, and it's also gonna help keep it in place by wedging underneath our tonneau cover.
There it is. First piece is in. Pretty exciting, huh?
Like any good project, there are so many things that I would have done differently if I could have. In this case, I would have covered this with material before installing it because that would have made so much more sense. And with the last piece of the top cover going in, we're getting a much better idea of what this is going to look like. While it's YouTube and usually we just pretend that everything we do comes out perfect, I'm going to be honest and say I really shouldn't have used staples here. In fact, I wish I just hadn't used this rubber at all, and you'll see why later. We're ready to build the kitchen drawer. It was a little more complicated, but not complicated like your on-again, off-again relationship. Here's the breakdown. We're gonna have a small recessed sink drawer here. A main storage drawer will pull out right over top of it, perpendicular to the sink. A cutout where our propane stove is gonna go, with an open storage area underneath. And finally, a large pantry area in the very back. Now that I've triple checked that everything is right, we're gonna start cutting it out. A tip to make sure that drawers like this are exactly the same: clamp them together, use a router, perfect match. And this is a mock-up of what everything should look like together. But first, you guessed it, more rubber. The main drawer assembly is looking pretty good, although I did realize the next morning that I screwed up. I forgot to account for the 1.5 inches from both sides of the 3/4 walls. Luckily, it's an easy fix for a table saw. Now that our drawer is the right size, we're gonna cover most of the pine plywood that'll make up this drawer in aluminum. Like almost everything else in this build, I found these cheap aluminum sheets at Home Depot. We're using contact cement to glue them together, and we'll be installing it pretty much anywhere that might get hot or wet. While it tacks up, we'll start assembling the kitchen drawers. This is gonna be that general purpose drawer that opens up outwards with the water pump behind it, and this will eventually become our sink. Just gotta use your imagination a little bit sometimes. To hide the sink out of the way, we're using standard drawer slides. You can really find these at pretty much any hardware store.
Sweet.
Now that our contact cement has had plenty of time to tack up, we're ready to put it on. With that done, it's finally time to
route these edges.
In my experience, the key to happiness is professional looking edges. To get that, we've left a bit of aluminum overhang and we're trimming it using a flush trim router bit.
Cheapest little Chinese bit I could find.
We'll give it a quick hit with a sander to scuff it up a bit, and hot damn, that is looking nice. Which means we finally get to start assembling the kitchen drawer. We're skipping a few steps here, definitely not because I forgot to record. We finished our box, put a lid on the other side, and we're just now installing the platform that our propane stove is gonna go on.
That should be perfect.
For all the plywood edges that are going to be showing, I picked up a countersink bit and some aluminum L channel. Okay, now we're working on that drawer inside of a drawer, kind of a drawerception situation. If you're looking at that recess and wondering what the heck is going on, that's where our water pump is going to go. With this main drawer pretty much complete, we're going to move on to 2 smaller drawers, which are going to help maximize space right here and here. I think this would be a great time to remind you that you don't need to be a skilled woodworker to do this. I mean, look at the techniques I'm using. I'm certainly not a skilled woodworker. But if you're willing to fail enough times, eventually you will figure this out. Since we're using low-grade pine plywood from Home Depot, we're gonna make sure to cover the edges up so that nothing splinters down the road. This is also another great way to make your work look way better than it actually is. Pro tip there for you. Since we plan on staying in remote places for extended periods of time, we're building in a portable power station to keep our fridge running that we'll be installing in a bit. And while we wait on some Amazon deliveries, we're gonna prep and stain our first drawer. And finally, the thing that we've been waiting for 2 days is here.
And that is these massive and very expensive drawer slides. So what does $136 worth of slides get you? Well, let's take a look. And they are definitely heavy duty.
I'm gonna be completely transparent here. Setting up these drawer slides was no easy task. Good thing you took great care to make sure these drawer supports were perfectly parallel early on. They really don't leave much room for
first
error.
half's done. Since I can't fit back there, Bree's gonna have to climb in. So for this step, if you're in a similar predicament, make sure you have a tiny person.
Someone help me! There's no air in here. Oh god.
No, you're okay.
Okay.
You're okay, I promise. Very good.
Oh god, I hate every second of this. I hate it.
Great, you're doing great.
I gotta get out, don't let me. I'm stuck.
No, you're not stuck.
And I'm
Look how easy
freaking
you're
out and
getting
it's
out.
too hot and there's no...
Okay, well we almost got him.
People are gonna think I'm absolutely ridiculous.
As the saying goes, if you want something done right, try to get your claustrophobic wife to do it for you for far too long, and then finally decide to do it yourself.
My nuts! Ah.
Folding.
With the drawer slides in, it's time to finish the rest of our drawers so that we can install them.
Oh yeah.
Here I'm using spray poly, a little bit lazier, but a lot faster.
Wow, it's gonna come out all the way to there.
Installing the drawers wasn't too difficult, but these don't really operate like normal slides. They don't actually detach, so you have to do it in place. To make sure that it didn't drag, I'm using 1/4-inch spacers to make sure that every drawer is set up just a little bit from the floor. And we'll just do the exact same thing with the other one. And voila, I halfway look like I know what I'm doing. Okay, let's get those skinny little cute drawers pushed in there, and now it's finally time to move on to drawer faces. And that brings us to day 3, where I found another awful mistake that I made. This time, I built everything too close to the tailgate, so I was forced to route out a space for the faucet, which took an insane amount of time.
Okay, for water flow, we're gonna try out this little 12-volt pump. The main thing that I want out of this is a slow trickle of water because we really want water to last as long as possible. Ha! It works.
It works.
That's all we need right there.
With the water working, it's finally time to cut a slot out for our collapsible sink to fit in.
Finally, after 6 times, perfect fit. Fortunately, that broke when I ran it to the table saw, so other than that, really nice fit. Bree's gonna stain this up and then this is ready to go in.
And while she stains that, I'll finally be putting the rubber on the front faces of all of our drawers. Now, this was the fatal mistake that I made, using this rubber on these drawer faces. At first, it looked really, really good, but after about a week, it started to shrink up and no longer fit perfectly, and even started falling off if it sat in the sun too long. Instead of this rubber, I would try using Formica sheets. You can order it from Home Depot and possibly even on Amazon. With that rubber in place, we're finally ready to start installing hardware, and this is the first time you get to see the sink in action. Our water cooler pump is going to work on a 12-volt switch, which will be powered by a 20 to 12-volt converter that I found on Amazon, perfect for a DeWalt battery. To keep some of our heavier duty items from moving around, we're just going to use these tie-down straps. This project's almost complete, but before it is, we need to install our cooler. We're not going to be using any standard cooler, mind you. Constantly going through bags of ice? No way. Instead, we partnered with Iceco to install a beautiful chest freezer that'll keep us out pretty much indefinitely. While their tagline might be weak,
What the hell is even that?
their coolers definitely aren't.
Okay, so this is really the final part to our puzzle. The problem is basically all this is going to have to be cut away so that we can get to that front panel. And since our cooler is going to be powered, we're going to route this through that back drawer.
And even though it can be run using either AC or DC,
We will only be using DC for it because it's going to be much more efficient. There are two big brain features on this thing that make this fridge perfect for doing what I'm doing. Number one is that you can open it literally from both sides. What? Number two, you can hook up from DC on this side, or you can hook up DC on the other side.
go get one for your overlanding build, van, or bus at icecofreezer.com. Make sure to use code Basically Nomads to save 12% off your order. With the cooler in, it's finally time for the big reveal. We've maximized space with these two drawers to the very left. The top one goes over the wheel well and is super deep. And we have our entire kitchen on one drawer slide, with everything that you need to cook food in the middle of nowhere. On the other side, we have our Iceco chest freezer with some extra overlanding storage behind that.
That was a huge burrito.
When it's finally time to clean up, I have 1/4-inch nylon tubing that I insert here, which connects to the pump. Drop that into whatever water source you want to use. Pop our collapsible sink down. Make sure our battery's connected. Hit the switch. We have running water. So how'd I do on the budget? Well, unfortunately, I overshot it by $177.63. Those freaking drawer slides were $300. I did not expect that. But still a far cry from the $1,500 starting price of the deck drawer system. And overall, I'm insanely happy with how it turned out, but let me know what you think about it down in the comments.